specifically in this panel, the music of the galaxy far, far away. And we're going to dig into an hour of Star Wars conversation here in just a few moments. But first, I want to welcome in the co-host for this panel from the Sisters with Sabers podcast. We have the one and only Raven.
Hello.
And from unmistakably Star Wars, of all the guys I know, he's one of them. Devin Kleffer, everybody.
Wow, that is an incredible introduction. Good morning or good evening, wherever you're at, global galaxy. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, absolutely. I hope this is one of those panels where the timing is so great, where it's either early morning for some of you or late at night for others. And wherever you are, I hope you've got the appropriate beverage in hand and jump in and enjoy. This is going to be a lot of fun. But before we get into today's discussion, I want to pass along our thanks to the organizers of ForceFest. So Richard and Sarah, Tyler, Frank, Christy, Courtney, Kelly, Kevin, who without their heavy lifting, we're not here today. So, and of course, a little closer to home, we have Dan in the chat, our admin, taking care of everything behind the scenes. So thank you for all that, everybody. This has been, I'm sure, a huge undertaking to get this thing together. And hats off to a great weekend coming up. But most importantly, folks, this entire weekend's events here at ForceFest are in benefit of the Make-A-Wish Foundation, helping critically ill kids make their dreams come true. And we all have the opportunity here today and throughout the weekend to help these kids in a big way. So if you check the chat, eventually Dan has already posted the link for the Make-A-Wish. So we can, any of us have a couple dollars to spend to spare, hit that link. Or Get Vocal will match 33% of all donations made through Get Vocal Vcoin. And there's a little blue diamond somewhere on your screen. Hit that. It'll take you right into the process of making that quick donation and helping out some kids who really could use it. So any of the money that you would have thrown at Lucasfilm for Star Wars Celebration Weekend, redirect a little bit of that money for some kids in need.
Absolutely.
And lastly, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the passing last night of Chadwick Boseman. I cannot go through with this, and with, the news shook us all last night when we saw the news, and he's such a talented, charismatic guy. And though he may not be directly connected to Star Wars, there's just such overlap between Star Wars fandom and Marvel fandom. It's impossible to have this at this hour. It's still so fresh in our minds that we got to at least acknowledge it. And by all accounts, he was just such a marvelous person. And he's going to be sorely missed. So our sincerest condolences go out to his family and friends, and may he rest in peace. All right, everybody. So that was a bit of a longish intro. And we now have some time to talk about the music of Star Wars. And just so you guys know, we're going to try and leave a few minutes at the end of the panel to have some of you guys in the chat jump in, take this little square here, this blank square, jump in and have your say and drop some quick thoughts. But we've got a roundtable discussion to have here first. So let's get to it, guys. I'm looking forward to this. So over 42 years, Star Wars has given us a lot of plot lines and characters and this and that have split fans one way or the other. But the one thing I think we can broadly agree on universally is that the music, the lexicon of music created by John Williams over the course of 9 movies, is something that we all adore and love to death. And it has played an essential and formative and enduring role over how we consume Star Wars. So the first thing I want to ask, Raven, I'm looking at you on this one. What is your relationship to the music of Star Wars? Is it just another piece of the puzzle for you? Or do you go a little deeper than that when it comes to Star Wars music?
Well, I think that for me personally, I'm a classical music fan and have been all my life. So listening to it as just music would have been thrilling and amazing. But for me, it's absolutely tied directly into it. Leia's theme is still my alarm clock in the morning. And, it's absolutely tied into the movies for me, the experience for me. And also, the 20th Century Fox, fanfare. Every time I hear it, doesn't matter what movie I'm watching, I expect to hear the main title theme, even when I know that I'm watching a completely different movie. I hear that fanfare and I think, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And I know it's not coming, but I can hear it in my head just because they've become so synonymous for me. That's how deep that goes. But then, like I said, with the movies it's themselves, it's characters.
Absolutely. How about you, Devin?
Yeah, I mean, I would echo what Raven said. And yeah, how can you not hear the Fox fanfare and not automatically go to, the opening credits of Star Wars? I think one of the fans that this has probably been out on the web for a few years now, but they removed the score from the throne room scene at Yavin 4, and it's just like, what is happening? It's not working, and I think that just goes to the brilliance of John Williams. I think it goes to, quite frankly, our love of the movies is probably so attached to the music of the film and how the visuals and the sound play together that we probably can't detach our love for Star Wars without acknowledging John Williams' work toward that. And we always talk as Star Wars fans, right? Mashing the nostalgia button. Well, I think part of that nostalgia button that's woven into our DNA is the John Williams score.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's, I mean, there's Luke and Leia and Han and Chewie and Vader and Anakin. Everybody is a part of the fabric that we watch on screen, and they say the words and they drive the story, but the music drives the story too. It underpins it. You can take out all the dialogue and just listen to the music and get what's happening in these movies.
Yeah.
And it's a character unto itself. And it is just, I mean, when you look at the way the music has penetrated pop culture, you hear the Imperial March. Everybody knows that.
Right.
Everybody knows the Force theme. Everybody, like, it's right. Incredible how this music has just kind of transcended from just being part of this geeky set of movies to something that my grandparents knew.
Right.
They could give a rip about Star Wars, but they knew that music when they heard it.
Well, and I'll fully confess, Absolutely. Kyle, that, now that we're live across the interwebs, like you talk about those iconic themes of the various characters, and like ringtone for my mother-in-law is the Imperial March, and so like I don't even have to look at the phone to know who's calling. So there is some symbolism that goes beyond a galaxy far, far away.
Well,
that's what I was going to say too. It's when you hear the Imperial March, everybody knows what it is, yes, but everybody also knows what it implies.
Yes.
If we're playing this song and there's a bunch of people moving, those are the bad guys. Obviously. I mean, the song tells you that in its sound, not only, its correlation to the movie, but just in the sound of the music itself, which is the genius of John Williams.
So when I got married, we had an outdoor wedding and we had our friend take care of the music. And sneakily, my wife, at some point, she went to our guy and said, when we start walking down the aisle, I want you to switch the music to the Imperial March. So my wife willingly walked down the aisle to the Imperial March. Like, that's a keeper. I mean, she's a Sith Lord, but she's a keeper.
Absolutely. Absolutely a keeper. 100%.
So go ahead, Devin.
Oh, I would say that's so impressive because I was so enraptured by falling in love with my girlfriend, now wife, that I didn't even do my due diligence. She hadn't even seen Star Wars, and I didn't find this out till after we were married, Kyle. So I dodged a bullet or a lightsaber, either way.
Yeah.
So, Devin, when we look at the other people who have carried the ball for Star Wars on the big screen, Michael Giacchino with Rogue One, John Powell with Solo, how have these non-William composers handled the music, in your opinion? Like, do you see their role as one to evolve the musical tapestry, or do you see their role as more of custodians of the music so far?
Yeah, I mean, Kyle, I think that gets just to the heart of Star Wars fandom, right? Because I think the same is true. That question isn't limited to the music. It's limited to where we're going with the stories and which characters we're being introduced to and falling in love with. So I think it's a balance. Like Giacchino, by the way, who pulled off the Rogue One soundtrack in a matter of weeks, did an incredible job. In fact, pardon me, the scene in the film where we're flying over Jeddah for the first time, and we see kind of the ruins of the Jedi on the ground there and the reddish sands of Jeddah. That particular piece within the score is one of my all-time favorites in any Star Wars work. So I think that there are talented composers that can I'll use it loosely, like pay homage to Williams, but take us into new exciting directions. And one of the best examples is what Kiner has done with Star Wars Rebels.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and even when you look at music that's been repeated, you look at the asteroid field chase, which of course is an iconic piece from Empire Strikes Back, but used again by John Powell in Solo. And he injects, I don't know if this is going to get me kicked off the panel, but I think I prefer the John Powell version. It adds a little bit more of adrenaline, and there's a bit of pounding drum to his version that I think just amps up the energy. So it's all at the same time, he's using something that exists, but he's changed it and changed the energy of it. If it could have been augmented anymore, he did it. And I'm like, I hear that. And I'm just, wow. So you're right. Like Devin, it's the balance. It's infusing some new energy, but also being a little bit familiar in that we recognize something as being Star Wars.
Yeah, absolutely. And Raven, let me ask you this, because it brings up this next question, obviously, which apparently, maybe, asterisk, we're going to get some new Star Wars films in a couple of years, and perhaps a brand new trilogy or two. And so, Raven, when we start talking about the new films, do we want that opening title and the closing credits to still kind of be bookend with what we know as the Star Wars theme, or do we kind of do what Rogue One and Solo did and just take us in a brand new direction and go for it?
Well, there's a loaded question.
Is it really? Yes, absolutely.
I, however, am, part of Rogue Squadron, so I could take it. I am, an original trilogy, starter. I'm as old as Star Wars. And for me, saga films, anything that would be continuing, the saga films, to me, should still have the main title theme and the end title theme. Not necessarily because I think they're better pieces or no one could possibly make them better. But I believe, as you do, that what we've gotten so far is such a beautiful melding of old and new, bringing in some of the things we recognize, but taking chances, doing different things, and allowing someone else to express how they see this world in a musical way, and I know a lot of musicians out there will completely agree with me. You can hear a song, and sometimes the only way you can describe it to someone is it sounds like being in this kind of room, because it's the only way you can really express how that music particularly hits you. And so I think for me, when I'm in the movie theater watching a Star Wars movie, I don't finally go, whew, it's over, until I hear the end title theme. Until that starts, I don't think that it's over. Like, there could be more. There could be more. That's that moment when I'm just like, oh, okay, that's the end of the drink. Shots over. We're done. It's, that to me is the end. And obviously the main title theme to me is just what it is. This is where it comes from. We're giving you, here's the original. But then from there on, I am all about hearing what new people have and new types of music. I mean, if you listen to the Mandalorian soundtrack, I mean, holy buckets. I mean, that's gone completely outside of what we're used to. And yet somehow it sounds like Star Wars. It doesn't sound like it doesn't belong. It just sounds like something we haven't heard before. So for me, for the saga films, main title and end title. However, on movies like Rogue One, Solo, I think it's fantastic to completely scrap that and do a completely different thing. And the same goes for any films coming up that wouldn't be considered saga films. I would say, go to town, do something new.
It's and
that's just me.
They're all valid opinions. They're all valid takes, because it's something that, right now we're not really thinking about it. Because if you sit back in your chair and you think about 2023, I bet you everybody here, everybody in the chat, you think about 2023, December, you're in your cinema seat and you're playing in your mind's eye right now. You're going to see a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and bam, it's going to be Star Wars. And I think you're expecting opening crawl. You're expecting that music. But what if it's not that, right? And that's one of the questions. It's one of the driving questions for this panel. It's something I've asked people over and over the years on various podcasts, and it's going to become a hot button issue. So I like to think we're out in front of this.
Yeah.
We can refer back to this in 3 years from now saying, hey, we told you guys. But so like that Star Wars logo card, the opening crawl, all that stuff. Is it just so important to keep that as sort of like constants within the language of Star Wars. Or like Raven, like you said, like if we had told you guys a year ago that there's going to be this Mandalorian show and the soundtrack is going to have rock, it's going to have industrial music, it's going to have electronic and some orchestral, you'd probably go, oh my God, what are they doing? They don't understand Star Wars. These guys don't understand the brand. They're going somewhere I can't follow. But you're right. You hear the Mandalorian soundtrack, and sure, it's jarring at first because it's so different, but it is that theme song. I mean, it's almost embedded itself already into our musical lexicon. My son walks around the house. He's either humming Imperial March or the Mando's theme. And it's like, wow, like that music has already penetrated. And that's, I guess that's part of Ludwig Göransson's genius, but he's done such a good job. And you say like, whenever the next person comes in, go for it. And I still go, but you're probably right. Like it seems to have worked out. So I want to just have the faith that whatever choice they make will be the right one. But, Star Wars fans, especially those of a certain vintage, i.e. us OT fans, we really cling to those old trappings of the saga. And that's not necessarily bad. We, as older fans, we have kind of helped it get to this point. But personally, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. I think any new composer coming into Star Wars, especially for a saga, will inherit something like the Force theme. Because the Force is the Force. For 25,000 years of this galactic history, the Force has been there. So I feel like that should be, if there's one piece of music that needs to kind of weave across all Star Wars, it should be that theme. Right? So what do you guys think? Devin, how do you think? Should at least the Force theme be something that's not mandated, but say, here's a character, the Force, that is going to be present in all these movies. Use this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, if we look back thousands of years ago, right, and we started having recorded history, and writers at the time, obviously, and I know like I'm preaching to the choir on this, but stay with me for a moment. And it's like, we didn't have italicized, we didn't have bold print, right? We had one person or a group of people writing a manuscript. And if the writer wanted to get their point across, what would they do? They would repeat that theme over and over and over again. And I think that that's what we want to see with the Star Wars score, right? We want to have that one element that when we hear it, it just pierces our heart, because we know not only what we're seeing visually, but we're connecting that to everything else we know when it comes to that theme. And I think, Kyle, like the Force theme, and even going as far as like the Binary Sunset, right? I mean, that whole set of musical score there has been so well placed. And you touched on this before as well, both of you, that it can be tweaked a little bit where it's still actually, we know it's that piece and what it's representing, but it's in a different setting, and it perhaps is using different instruments. And that, I think, is just these. I have so much in my head, I just want to get out. The sandbox of Star Wars is bigger now than any time in the last 40 years. It hasn't been this big since Lucas shot the original, and I think that should be a very exciting thing for fans.
Right, and to go off what you just said, you hear the Binary Sunset. It's something that kind of weaves its way through. It's that piece that kind of binds all of Star Wars together. But even when you look into Rise of Skywalker, and there's when Rey walks into the dilapidated throne room on Death Star 2, and you start to hear a different rendition of the throne room theme. And it's like, oh, it was chilling and haunting, but it's that piece that you've not heard in a Star Wars film since '83.
Right.
And it's those little moments where, and I don't know if it's because, I guess it's obviously because it's part of a saga that we recognize, but you're not going to hear that again. Like if you heard that theme, the throne room theme, in another throne room, in another saga, it would feel out of place.
Yeah.
So there is going to have to be a bunch of new stuff written. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But some stuff could absolutely come across and be sort of that comfort blanket.
Well, I think so. And you touched on this with The Mandalorian, right? I think one of the cool things is the genre of Star Wars crosses into many other genres, right? From going from Western to sci-fi to the samurai films, and it crosses over into so many genres that it's really, truly gives an opportunity for the metal or the electronica or whatever else to weave its way into that, because it crosses over so many genres of film.
Right.
Yep.
So do we have a favorite soundtrack? Raven, do you have something that something you just keep going back to, or is it selection of songs? Like you make your little mixtape of Star Wars music?
If I purposefully intend upon listening to Star Wars music, I am going to admit, perhaps not surprisingly to the room, that I go directly for the end title scene, throne room end title scene. I will literally listen to it on a loop because I just enjoy it sometimes. I mean, I can listen to all of it if I'm in a classical mood. You know, John Williams is definitely in the mix for me. But if I was going to say I'm going to listen to Star Wars music right now, no question, end title. Throne room and end title for me. I know that I talked to a friend of mine about being on here today, and he informed me that Duel of the Fates mic drop. So I'm putting his vote in just because he isn't here. I'm putting his vote in that he says Duel of the Fates. So, and that's a viable, I'm not against anything. I love everything. If somebody else loves it, I'm a fan, kind of thing. And I feel the same way about moving on with the music. I don't mind if we get rid of the old stuff. I'm good with new stuff too. It'll just be different, but you'll get used to it. And I know I saw somebody in the comments said exactly that. It'd be strange to have something different, but you get used to it. But yeah, for me, it's definitely that one.
And it's funny how Duel of the Fates got such a different treatment than almost anything else because of the time it came out with MTV and stuff like that. It got like radio play and a music video, and it was just part of this machine that helped to fuel the fire of prequel excitement. But man, that song is straight fire. It's such a cool track, and it's so emblematic of a great scene in and then they used it again in the Rise of Skywalker teaser trailer, and we lost our minds, and it didn't show up in the movie.
But what makes Duel of the Fates so powerful? I mean, amazing, music, yada, 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 fill all that in because we all know that that's true. Excuse me. But what makes it so spectacular is the first time you heard the Duel of the Fates, you didn't just hear it. You were seeing something that was moving with that same tempo, with that same energy. And it hits you in a different way when you experience music for the first time with a visual that really matches it. Because, the Binary Sunset, yes, the visual matches the music, certainly, but not the same way as two people who are doing what in almost every other planet would be dancing to the music. So you're seeing the expression of the different sounds and the different instruments and the different movements and the changes. And I think that the reason why Duel of the Fates, aside from being awesome, hit people so hard is that it's a visual experience the first time you heard it. You didn't hear Duel of the Fates anywhere before you saw it happen, So, and maybe that's just my opinion, but that's how I see Duel of the Fates being such a high echelon item for people, because it is a visual experience your first time.
That's a great point, Raven. How about you, Devin?
Oh man, I mean, asking me to tell you which one of my children is my favorite is probably a much easier question to answer, Kyle. So I think so much of my childhood was I have, in fact, you can't see it behind me, but it's on the wall a little bit higher, is the 12-inch The Story of Star Wars, and it is the soundtrack plus the audio of the film. And, that's one of the things about Star Wars, right? That the dialogue or the visuals are so ingrained into us that we can probably listen to something and have the dialogue going in our head, or the visuals going in our head, or both perhaps. I think for me, though, the one that really sticks with me is after the Millennium Falcon takes off from the Death Star, and when Han says, "Come on, gonna need you, buddy," and they're getting ready to face those TIE fighters, and just the slowness that starts with that, and then it just continues to increase, and it's got this frenetic pace to it. And if I listen to that when I'm driving, I want to just apologize to all past persons that have been with me in the car and future persons that will be with me in the car, because something happens, and I kind of hit light speed when that happens.
That track's called "Here They Come," and it's been
There you
used
go.
4
Yes.
times across the saga, including in Solo.
Yes.
So it was used first in A New Hope, then used again in Return of the Jedi, I believe, during the Death Star attack,
Mm-hmm.
and then in The Last Jedi they used it as Chewie, my guy, pilots the Falcon through the mines of Crate. It's very quickly as he's traveling through that little mine, that cave, and then again in Solo with the Kessel Run.
Yeah.
So so that theme became a little bit emblematic of almost like a Falcon theme, where each of those in each of those instances, the Falcon is being chased by TIE fighters, which.
Well, and there's your connective tissue, right? It's
right.
We're just getting well done.
You don't see it until like you take a step back and you look at this big, huge 40-year picture and go,
yeah,
look what they're doing, and it's happening under our noses. Man, we could talk about the music all day. Something I just want to touch back on something here, Raven. When we're talking about music that may or may not transcend across different sagas. So when we look at Mandalorian, and when the child, Baby Yoda, whatever you like to call him, uses the Force, they use the Force theme. Now, was that it stood out to me as a peculiar choice, like because I said, like, I think that's something that should be used. But does that jump out to you? Say, hey, why didn't you just use the Force theme?
It didn't, and I think the reason why is because it's disconnected. I do call the child Baby Yoda because it's cuter and funnier. And until I know what child's name is, child will be Baby Yoda because the child could refer to half the people in the country. So, so to me, I actually feel like the separation is not just because of the different type of story that the Mandalorian is, and certainly the Mandalorian as a character is. You know, you don't really know anything about him, so the music has to really speak to a certain vibe and a certain feel, because that's all you know at the beginning. And I feel like the reason that they didn't use the Force theme there was because this isn't Yoda. It looks like Yoda, but it isn't. And I mean, I know we all know that, just the same as we all know that the Mandalorian isn't Boba Fett. But it's, you know, it's that connection of, yes, it harkens so back to the thing that you know, but it isn't the thing that you know. And here's how we're going to tell you in a very quiet way, this is something slightly different than what you're used to. And I think that I feel personally that that's the reason why they did it in that particular place, is because they were trying to a certain degree, disassociate from Yoda, because this isn't actually Yoda, you know? And if that makes sense, to me, that's what it felt like they were doing, was that they were trying to make the separation between the two.
Yeah, that's fair. And maybe you can apply that music to Jedi only, right? And maybe he's not there. Maybe he won't ever get there.
Right.
What do you
that could be true.
What say you, Devin?
Yeah, I think that there's something there. I think that, you know, the other part of this, here we are completely speculating on the minds of Filoni and Favreau, but which is part of the fun of being a fan. I think that anything that we're going to get on Disney Plus that's going to be a series, and especially if it's with characters that we don't already know, they have carte blanche to just experiment to see what works. And I think that maybe was some of the thinking there, is like, we can have complete freedom to be creatives here, and the risk factor is much lower than if we're dealing with a Luke or a Leia or a Han Solo.
Yeah,
exactly.
They probably have risk mitigation lawyers.
Exactly. Kyle, I want to know from you though, because as we're talking, this thought crossed my mind. I thought, oh my goodness, correct me if I'm wrong, but is Star Wars music the one thing that Star Wars fans don't fight over, as far as like liking it or not liking it?
Oh yeah, I think so. Like off the top, I was saying, you know, we have characters who we love or hate, and storylines and choices made that we love or hate. But no, like the music comes out and we're just like, yep, I love this.
Yep, yeah, I can't imagine like walking out with you and go like, well, that soundtrack sucked. You know, like no one says that coming out of a Star Wars film.
Nobody. I don't ever remember. And I guess this applies also to the shows, the video games. Even Jedi Fallen Order just had its soundtrack released, and people rave about it.
Yeah, Yeah.
Yep.
Shadows of the Empire had a soundtrack. That goofy game and story from the 90s. People love that. So the music
I
of
love
Star
Shadows
Wars.
of the Empire.
Oh yeah, I do too. It's corny as hell, but it has a place in Star Wars fandom, and it deservedly so. But
Right.
yeah, even the soundtrack for that, it's out there. You can listen to it. It's Star Wars.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I think that might be something that Lucasfilm looks at, and I have no reason to believe they're not watching this panel taking copious notes. I think they should know that whatever we do musically tends to be embraced. As long as it's given the proper treatment. And like I don't think you would bring and this is not a slander on Michael Tavera, but the score that he brought to Star Wars Resistance is not the scale and grandeur that you would put into a saga film. So as long as it's given that proper treatment and you give somebody the run of like 100 some odd piece orchestra, you're fine. You're probably going to weave a tapestry of music that we're all going to go, good. I really enjoyed that. That's Star Wars to me. And it's
right.
And it will take time for any new characters and their associated themes to sort of, I guess, burrow their way into our hearts. And especially, but it's really not about us at this point, right? A new generation of fans is here. A new generation of films is coming for these kids. And we're gonna, as older people, we're probably gonna tag along and take it or leave it as we will. But for these kids, there's going to be a new musical language for them, and that will be their Star Wars. And
I guess it's super interesting. Yeah, I just got to tell you, Kyle, like that's a super interesting thought that hasn't even crossed my mind. Is like, you're right. Like the music today in pop culture is much different than music in pop culture was in the 70s and 80s, and you're absolutely right. What is going to inevitably play to the hearts of those that are on the younger side now? So when they have their wallets filled later in life, that Star Wars can hit that nostalgia button again for them. And that, talking about your ring theory, there it is, getting those consumer dollars. But I think Kyle, that is just such a spot on observation.
Yeah, and I'm just watching in the chat over here. Sorry, Evan, but yeah, people are real good about raving about Fallen Order, the soundtrack for it.
I saw that a couple times roll up.
People feel very strongly that Baby Yoda is his name until it's not. Go ahead, Raven.
Yes, it's every once in a while. I'm actually on the winning side. I like that. No, what I was going to say is something that's brought up, and it wouldn't be just in music. It would be in every single aspect of Star Wars, that there is a lot of people talk about fan service, and there's a lot of griping about fan service. And while I understand that to a certain degree, I want to remind every single person who's ever griped about fan service in a Star Wars movie or book or comic or whatever it might be, please remember that you wouldn't be getting Star Wars stuff if it wasn't for the fans. And so it's okay if we get served up a little of that old tea that we like in the middle of all of this new stuff, because the reality is that when it comes to Star Wars and you come to the fandom, when the fandom does have, head-butting issues, a lot of times I think it simply is that old schoolers, and I don't want to cast aspersions on all old schoolers, and I'm also an old schooler, but a lot of them, anything new is automatically just like, well, that's not what I had, so it's not cool. And, so we have to sort of accept that the old schoolers are the reason that it's here. But that doesn't mean that we have to, we can forget that some of these people aren't old schoolers. So we can't just keep depending on the same old stuff. So, try to find that balance. But even with the music, fan service isn't going to kill anybody. Just don't drown us in it. Yeah. But at least, reference those people who have for 40 years been following, because those of us who have been, who suffered the slings and arrows of 30 years of the same 3 movies, we deserve a little pat on the back for showing up. So let us have our main title theme. Let us have our end title theme. You can have everything in the middle.
Exactly. And I was listening to, I think it was on Fat Man on Batman, Kevin Smith talking with Mark Bernardin. And Kevin was bristling at the idea of fan service and saying it's all fan service. Once you get past that initial one, part 2 is the beginning of fan service. Yeah. And maybe you've got movies 2 and 3 already planned in your head if you get the opportunity. But there is a role where something becomes successful and you go, oh, let's do more of that. That is fan service, all of it. So we are in a,
well, and
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I had nothing left to contribute there. I was just going to ramble.
well, good. Let me take over and ramble for you. I was just going to say things like, I have a bad feeling about this and all of those kinds of things. Those are the kinds of things that are starting to feel like, okay, it's fan service that's been overused and that kind of thing. So I can get where people's, concerns are coming from. But a lot of that is, for some people, it's just like, oh, I remember the first time they said that. I didn't know how bad it was going to go. You know what I mean? So I think it's good to keep those little things, but move on a little bit, have new things, and involve new things, and don't be afraid to experiment. I think that's the most exciting part of what's going on with Disney Plus. And I mean, I know there are concerns, they're valid concerns, but we also have to remember, that we're playing with deep pockets and we have some freedom now. And if you're concerned about what they can do, I again reference The Mandalorian, which had no business being what it is. And while it may not be perfect, it may not be your thing. Let's be real here. It's been more universally, liked, I think, than any of the sequel trilogy movies. And so if you can do that with a television show, I feel like there's a chance you could do more. Now they're going to have, foot in their mouth moments. They're going to do things that are not right. But the one thing they're not going to get wrong is the music. I think Disney has a fairly decent track record with music. I feel like they know what works. And Star Wars has a delightful track record with music, and we know what works. So between the two, I feel like they're going to figure something out.
Do you think, Raven, let me ask you this, though. Do you think, I agree with you, by the way, do you think that we'll ever have a Star Wars score moment, though, that is ever as iconic from the original trilogy?
I don't know I don't know. I think it's hard to say. But if you ask people what their favorite piece by Beethoven is, there's really only two choices, but you'll get people who will say other things.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to really say for sure, because again, when you're talking about the next generation, these young kids coming up now, the music from Rogue One might be as powerful to them as the music from A New Hope was for me, because I was a little kid. So there's no way to say for sure. But having said that, I would point to, once again, the maestro and say, how many of those moments does he have? And how many other composers can say they have that many moments, that many in this time of the world that we live in? This man makes symphonic music where you can pick out a song that was playing and when you should have been paying attention to something totally different, but now you can't remember what was in the scene, but that that's the music from, Pick Your Poison. Yeah. And when somebody has that many of them, it's hard to think that that's as easy to do as one might think. You know what I mean?
Right.
So when I look at it, I say it's totally possible that somebody could come and do something as iconic. But when somebody's done it, a good 10 to 15 times, and that's being, modest, it's hard to think that it's easy to do. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally. No, I'm totally there. And in fact, in listening to your response, Raven, it brings up another interesting question. And Kyle, you've been doing a great job moderating, but you haven't answered many questions. So I'm going to throw this to you.
Get him.
So do you think, Kyle, like going forward, do we have someone that we embrace as like the Star Wars composer, or is now going to be like, here, this person does this film, this person may be doing this trilogy, and we're going to have a greater mix of people? Or do you think that there is one composer out there that this is the new person with the baton that John Williams is metaphorically passing off to?
Yeah, and I love to put the speculation hat on here. I love doing this. As long as we don't get married to any of our ideas, I think speculation is just a blast. And I don't know. I do feel strongly that whatever saga comes along, it should be one person. I think there should be like a single director, writer, team, and a single composer. And I don't know that I have anybody in mind, but I do hope it's not one of the big name composers. Like I don't want to see Hans Zimmer or Howard Shore or Alan Silvestri. Like, to me, their work is so connected to other franchises, and just landing them. Like, I know we're sports fans here, and so you'll get this one when I say that it would feel a bit like when one of the big money teams just goes out and gets a big name free agent just because there's an expectation that they will spend that money that they have so much of. So I don't want them to go after those people.
Agreed.
The one person I would have loved to have seen do it is unfortunately no longer with us, Michael Kamen, who did the score for Iron Giant, and I think he was the conductor for the SFO. So maybe you know him a little bit, Devin. I think he would have been a great pick, but not going to happen. I could see them going with a guy like Ramin Djawadi, who did the score for Game of Thrones. And he also did the score for Iron Man, the first Iron Man movie, and Westworld and Pacific Rim. So he's got some big game experience to him. And it's also, since he did Iron Man, there is that Disney connection made. So he could be a guy they reach out to. And so that also means he knows Jon Favreau. And sometimes who you know is as important as what you know.
Yes, absolutely.
But I do have one more. It's a dark horse pick. If Lucasfilm puts its money where its mouth is and continues to give women more of a voice in shaping the galaxy far, far away, I'm going to throw the name Rachel Portman out there. And I think that's a name that might get kicked around circles, whether privately at Lucasfilm, or maybe fans will eventually lift that name up. But she's the first female composer to have won an Oscar in 1996 for Emma. And and she's done scores for Cider House Rules and Chocolat. And they were both Oscar nominated scores. And I think, I went back and I listened to some of those scores. I think she has the sensibility to be able to pull off some Star Wars music. And of course, the other person that, of course, I think has to come into the conversation is if Rian Johnson ever gets his trilogy, he might just bring his cousin along, Nathan Johnson, who did virtually all the soundtracks for Rian Johnson's films. The score for Knives Out is also brilliant. So who's to say? Who's to say? I mean, the decision could be made already in some cases, but I can't wait to see what choice they make. But what about you guys?
Well, I mean, I will confess, Star Wars confession time. I am not that familiar with names beyond the little bubble of like Williams and Giacchino and Vangelis, Alan Silvestri. Oh my God. I'm just thinking like Rocky montage all of a sudden. Here's what we need. And I think that we have agreed to this by and large as a fandom, that diversity is a good thing. And so whether that's putting a woman in charge of the score or women of color in charge of the score, like, yes, let's do it. Again, no better time to experiment than with stories and characters we don't yet know and haven't yet fallen in love with. So now is the time. Open up the floodgates.
And it also gives the composer a chance to fall in love with the character. Or the story of the character or the vibe of the character, because I think that that's always going to make you more expressive no matter what your art is. If it's drawing, if it's writing, if it's singing, if it's painting, if your subject is something you can feel really, really invested in or have really strong, impressions of, I think that's something that you can probably get across easier. As a singer, I know I have a really hard time singing any song where I can't somehow place myself in the story. I have a hard time just being able to put emotion behind something that I haven't experienced. And so I can appreciate how those two work together. And I know for an artist like myself, I'm not an artist, but if I were a singer, I would not be interested in singing a song, in my particular case, about a character, just any character. I would rather you give me that character, the one whose bio I read and I was just like, I know her or I know him. I've met that person, I've dealt with that person. So I think, what they do can really be impacted by what they're doing it for, if that makes sense. So yeah, with these new characters that we don't know, backstories we don't know, worlds we don't know, types of people we don't know, there is nothing stopping you from absolutely going for it. you're going to hit and you're going to miss. That's going to happen regardless of whether or not you take chances with new people. So absolutely take chances with new people. Although, given the opportunity to answer the question, I think John Williams should do all Star Wars music forever.
I think Rian Johnson.
But John and I go way back.
I bet you Rian Johnson would have used his cousin for Last Jedi, if not like you're working with John Williams, Ryan. You don't have a choice.
Right.
Okay. Like, it's royalty. Exactly. You get him. Going forward, who knows? I completely agree with you, Raven. It's time to sort of break the mold a little bit. And I hope Star Wars does what it did in 77 and a little bit to a lesser extent in 99 in taking unknown people and putting them into the beginning stages of a new saga and letting them build their way up. Mark Hamill, nobody knew. Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, Jake Lloyd, Natalie Portman. These were all relative unknown names at that time.
Yep.
John Williams was a known quantity.
And where would the world be if Harrison Ford didn't exist?
Oh boy, up a creek.
Right. That's all. Just had to put that in there.
I would like for Star Wars to do that a little bit. So avoid the Hans Zimmers, avoid these people that come with so much expectation and baggage and such a resume. Go find the unknown person or the lesser known person and lift them up. Someone at some point spoke about sending the elevator down for others. I think maybe it was Leslie Headland in one of her interviews about starting to work with Lucasfilm is, as someone who is part of a marginalized group, part of her responsibility now is to send the elevator down for other people. And I don't know if it was her quote, but it stuck with me, whoever said it. And I hope, in the case of Rachel Portman, I saw some love for her in the comments. So maybe she's not as unknown as I thought, but I think that would be an inspired choice. And I think it's time for Lucasfilm to make inspired choices. Absolutely 100%. But
yes.
We got about 10, 12 minutes left here. I think we should look to bring in some people from the chat here. If anybody, so Dan was gonna, there he goes. He's made grab the spot available. Anybody wants to click that grab the spot button, hop on in here for a couple minutes, introduce yourself, give us. Oh, we got Darth.
Here
Tuba.
we go.
Here we go. That didn't take long.
Hello.
Will
Morning.
Darth Tuba. How's it going, sir?
I'm fine. How are you all doing? You guys do a great job with this. This is fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for jumping in. Hit us with your Star Wars music take.
My music take is I've been a John Williams fan, and since I was 6 years old, which is when I also started playing violin, and I'm now a professional music educator and teaching high school orchestra and marching band. So my journey with Star Wars and music kind of runs parallel. So I've always appreciated John Williams for opening up the like you said, Raven, the gate to classical music was my first thing with it. So I've been loving everything that he puts out, not just Star Wars, but a lot of other films, especially the different, going to different films, maybe not that big blockbuster action adventure, but things like Schindler's List and some other things that he's got, things like the Terminal, which is a phenomenal soundtrack if you ever want to listen to something very different. Catch Me If You Can, very jazzy. So I've been really appreciative of the work that he's done, and I've always felt that the 9 films that he did for Lucasfilm for Star Wars have been, some of it's derivative from previous things, and then some of it's there's always something new, there's always something different. I particularly think about Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. You recall the whole chase sequence through Coruscant when he had electric guitar going, and it was just, it was so cool to see even just John Williams be different than John Williams, and I thought that was really cool. Now, so I guess because there's been so much difference, I feel, in what he's done, that I didn't feel that any jarring change when Michael Giacchino took over for Rogue One. And again, as you guys said, what was it, 3 weeks? 2 weeks? It was amazing what he was able to accomplish. And then I'm blanking on Solo.
John Powell.
John Powell, thank you. And he was. I was absolutely floored with what he did. I loved his score. I loved how it was different. I loved how he went back and hit a few moments of familiarity. So yeah, I'm all for bring on new people. Bring on new artists, new guys. The Ludwig Göransson. Completely different, And I even thought, but we were kind of introduced to that with things like Kevin Kiner for Clone Wars, and he was doing a lot of world music throughout 7 seasons. So I'm just, I feel like we've already started to dip our toe in the water, even to go into Star Wars Clone Wars. So I think it's okay to move on to new things, maybe take a quick visit back Last thing I'll say, and I'll give it up to someone else. I did enjoy that how in Rogue One and Solo, which were the two first forays into other, non-Skywalker, non-saga films, they started in different lanes. I didn't mind that. They went into different directions, but at the end, for about 32 seconds, you heard da 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 da. You heard that end title. It just kind of brought you back just for a few moments. Same thing with the Hans and the credits, and then they once again went into their own thing. And I thought that was a nice way to, for a short while, to bring these films, at least in terms of theatrical releases, to bring them back.
That's a great point.
You know what I mean?
That's a great point.
They're bringing you a cup of coffee after your dinner. That's what it is. They just put the cup of coffee down. You're like, all right, I'm good.
Awesome.
All right,
I
love that
I want to
insight.
give it up to someone else. But
All right, thanks, Darth.
all right, thank you guys. All right?
Thanks,
I'll talk to you
Thanks
soon.
for chiming in.
All right, no problem.
Yeah, now every time I'm going to listen to a Star Wars soundtrack, though, I'm going to think of Will, and it's going to be kind of that riff between what Will just said and the Saturday Night Live with Will Ferrell, more cowbell. I'm just going to think it needs more Cuba. I need more Cuba.
Oh, no. All right, 10 minutes. Who's up next?
All right, come on. Hit that grab the
Yeah,
spot.
get in here.
Jump on
The
in.
water's great. Come on in.
Come on,
Hey, as we're waiting for somebody, let me throw this to you guys. What is John Williams' best film score that's not Star Wars?
Oh, man.
That's easy. It is.
Well,
Superman.
Superman's a strong pick. Holy cow. E.T.
Yeah.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
It's all right. F105's in the house. How's it going, man?
Yeah, I was actually just wanting to tune into your panel to enjoy it, but I'm kind of doing a dress rehearsal for my own panel today. And I really I want to see if I could get away with this character that I have going with the mask on. But I really wanted to say that I love this panel, and I love the idea that the Force theme would be the one theme connecting everything. I think, Kyle, you mentioned that?
I did.
Yeah, that's cool because philosophically, like, the Force is one, right? It binds everything together. So
Wow.
I think if that's like the one thing that connects everyone through space and time, it would be the Force. So I think that's a cool idea.
I love it.
Yeah.
Pimp your panel. What panel are you doing?
It's called DIY Hero's Journey, turning your fandom into creation.
Ooh, cool.
Cool.
Yeah. 12:30 Pacific time, 1:30 Central, and 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Yeah.
Now, as a musician yourself, do you have any requests as who you'd love to see take on the reins in future Star Wars movies?
Oh, you know what? Like, I know a lot about folk, rock, a bit about rap, but I love classical symphony, but I don't know enough about composers to say.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So just roll with it then, right?
I do know what I hear. I do think Ludwig Göransson is single-handedly defined what future Star Wars music can be, and the fact in that this is the first new Star Wars music that is not John Williams based at all. And he in the Disney Gallery Mando episode that he was on, he mentioned how he wanted to do something that felt John Williams in terms of the vital energy he gave it when he was young. That is so intangible.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the scales or rhythms or anything that he's choosing, but it's all like a feeling. And to me, that shows, aside from his Grammys, with people like Lando, I just think he's a genius. And he was able to make new Star Wars music that wasn't rooted in Star Wars at all. So then, Kyle, when you mentioned the Force being the one thing, and you guys talked about how when Baby Yoda used the Force, it wasn't him, it wasn't that theme. Kind of made me think that if the Force theme was used at only one key moment in the entire Mando series, then you would notice it. I think part of the problem with the overuse of John Williams' music is, as much as we love it, you just start to not feel it or notice it because it's used so much. So, like one time for the Force theme in the series would really direct your attention to, I think would be really cool.
That's a great point.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't want to take up too much space. So you guys are saying someone jump in. So I just went for it.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah. I'll get off now and let someone else.
Yeah,
Good luck with your panel.
Yeah,
Okay,
have a great time today.
Yeah, good luck with
Yeah,
your
may the
panel.
ForceFest be with you.
Thanks, you too, man.
And also with you.
All right. Do we have time for one more, or is it? Do we have to land the ship already? Oh, here he is. Dave's going to be.
5 minutes.
What better way to close out the panel than with Dave Hackerson all the way in Japan? There he is. Dave, how's it going, sir?
There he is.
right.
He does have the adult beverage going. Had a boy, Dave.
Yes, it's almost tomorrow for you guys here. I'll get back in the camera. I was saying in the chat, like you were talking about wild card composers, and one that I thought of that people probably recognize from The Revenant is Yuichi Sakamoto.
Okay.
The guy who was in YMO from the 80s. He's a Japanese composer. He's just done. I've only listened to some of his music, but he can cover anything. The guy is just genius, and he was in the movie with David Bowie, where I can't remember the name of it, where David Bowie was a captured POW in World War II, and Sakamoto Yuichi plays the Japanese commandant, or one of the Japanese officers at a prison camp, and he befriends David Bowie's character. But the theme of that movie was just really poignant, and so I think that if you gave him the parameters, this is what we want, he would just knock it out of the park. So
Very cool. Very cool.
Is that Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence? Is that what that is, Dave?
Yes, that's it.
Ah.
All right, gang. I think we gotta start to say our goodbyes here. But Dave, thank you, man.
No problem.
Drop his name in the comments so people can check him out. But we got to start saying our goodbyes here, and this brings us to the end of our panel. I want to say thank you all so much again for watching along and making such a lively chat in the side comments here. And if you haven't already, please hit that button for the Make-A-Wish. The kids need it. Hey, Carlos, if you can't find that link, we'll be pleased to share that with you guys offline later. Again, thank you to the organizers for putting this thing together in lieu of Star Wars Celebration. We should be bathing in the glow of Anaheim right now, but that's going to have to wait till 2022. But we got to say goodbye. So Raven, please plug your panel, plug your pod, plug everything you can.
Hi everybody, Raven. You can find me on Twitter at Genevella J, and also, of course, on Sistas with Sabers. And please come and listen to us and hear some candid conversation from a different point of view. And please, like, review, that kind of thing, of course. But really, please come and listen and hear some things from a different point of view, and hopefully not feel like you were lied to by Obi-Wan at the end. That's all I got.
Your turn, Devin.
Wow. That's going to be tough to follow up. Yeah, you can find us at unmistakably.starwars.com. You can find us on that wretched hive of scum and villainy on Twitter at unmistakably SW. And Kyle, thank you for inviting me on this. This was fantastic.
I couldn't have done this without you guys, man. You guys are just badasses of the highest degree. I love you guys, man. Thank you so much for doing this. As for me, you can find me at the Tumbling Saber Podcast, a part of the Star Wars Commonwealth Podcast Network, wherever you listen to podcasts. You can also find me on Twitter, Instagram, our private Facebook group, which anybody here in the comments, in the chat, come check it out. Come hang out, talk more Star Wars with us in that group. And then you can also find me later today talking with my good friend Tim of the Nerd Room, talking about collecting Star Wars in the Disney era. And that's at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. So if you get that plastic anxiety and you love Star Wars collecting as I do, come check out another panel. And that's it, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. I had a blast. I hope you had a blast. All right, everybody. That's going to do it.
Thanks, everybody.
Enjoy the rest of the weekend's content. And may the ForceFest be with you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.